It's a good sized fort.
There wouldn't have been a whole lot of horses here. Yeah, they would have been all, I mean, there were some dragoons. They didn't call them cavalry at the time. Dragoons fought on horse and on foot. But they didn't have a lot of the dragoons here. They didn't have a need for keeping the horses. All right, anybody have any guesses what the building there is?
Smokehouse?
Ammunition.
Powder. You've been here before.
Jail.
Powder magazine.
That is the powder magazine. I have a lot of kids go, big doghouse? No, that's a powder magazine. Only short people can work in a powder magazine. Not really. When you go in that powder magazine, they would have that built down anywhere from 4 to 8 foot deep. Reason being, picture this. I like to use a lot of imagery. If you had a saucer full of peas on it and you took a firecracker and you laid it down in the middle of that saucer of peas, when it blows up, it shoots peas all over the house, right? But if you took those same peas, you put them in a saucer and you drop that firecracker inside a cup, all your peas get to stay there, the explosion goes up. So if there was ever an accidental spark or something in there, all the energy would go up instead of out. So that's why they would have built those down below. So this is going to be the quartermaster. It's going to be a little tight fit, so everybody just come in to the left side and kind of walk all the way around. Once everybody gets around, then I'll explain it more. But arguably, the quartermaster would have been one of the 2 most important men at the fort. The quartermaster is the guy that gave you everything that you needed, all your supplies, everything else, and the cook. 2 guys you never wanted to make mad. The guy that gave you everything and the guy that cooked your food. So if you guys want to come on in, just file to the left and work your way all the way back around.
Search Jim before he leaves this room.
So you guys see the air condition does work in here a little bit, right? It's a little bit cooler than it is outside. Most of the stuff in here is either very good replicas or it is from period. Now again, the quartermaster gave you everything that you needed to sustain life in the war. From your rations, all your food, your important stuff like tobacco back then. He was in charge for giving all that stuff out. Anybody have any ideas what's in the barrels?
Molasses.
Whiskey.
Vinegar.
I hear vinegar, salt, molasses.
Whiskey.
Everybody in? No whiskey. This was a fort. It was a dry fort. There would have been no whiskey.
That's it, I quit.
Okay. Everybody's tapping out on the guesses. So, out of all the grown, fit, strong, strapping young lads that we still have in here today, how many men would it have taken us to carry a 400-pound box from Tampa to Ocala? Probably 4 of us, right? How many of us does it take to push a 400-pound barrel off the ship all the way to Ocala? I can push that barrel up this ramp onto another loading ramp right up there all by my lonesome. Everything that they would have had back then, if they couldn't have carried it on their body, would have gone in a barrel. They'd have put a 200-pound box in a barrel and rolled it. So it was all about efficiency. You know, when a lot of these kids, 17, 18 years old, you know, you had to be as efficient as you could. Some of the requirements for being in the war. A young boy might have walked up to the quartermaster and known that you have to be, one of the requirements, you got to be male. So, ladies, I'm sorry, you can't go play in the war and fight with the Seminoles. Second requirement, you had to be over 16 years old. Some of these 14, 15-year-old boys, they needed the money. They'd make about $6 a month. That's good money in the 1830s. So they would try and figure out ways to get one over on the quartermaster. Typically what they would do as a 14, 15-year-old boy would take a shoe off, take a piece of paper and write a 1 and a 6 on it, put that piece of paper in a shoe, put a shoe back on, walk up to the quartermaster, say, "Sir, I need to be in the military." Quartermaster would say, "Were you over 16? He'd look him right in the eye and go, "Yes, I am." Over 16. So that was one of the things that they used to do. The third and most important requirement, this one's a kicker, you had to have 2 teeth opposing. You had to have one on the top and one on the bottom. Now, they didn't have bullets, they didn't have shotgun shells, they had little cartridges of white paper that had their wadding, their gunpowder, and their packing in there. In order to load their gun, they had to bite that, tear it off, spit it out, and dump it in their gun. So you could be the most fit and the fastest guy out there, but if you didn't have 2 teeth, you couldn't be in the war. So they weren't real picky. They didn't really care, you know, what your IQ was. They didn't care how hard you could work. They needed everybody that they could get. Any questions in here? This is always a favorite. I know some of you guys refer to some people. It's this thing. This is what happens when you steal from the quartermaster or any of the other troops. You get issued this. So you guys can't see it. This is what it is. It's not light. It's not going to break your back. It's not heavy. But it's enough to let people know that you're coming. This would go on your wrists. And then you would have to carry this thing around with you everywhere you went. Because you stole something. They also had a sign over here that said thief on it. Just a word that said thief on a little plank. You'd have to wear that. Reason being, we're all in this together. We're all fighting. I only got issued so much tobacco or so many rounds. And if you took that from me, then we're not friends anymore. Because that could mean me living and you dying. Or vice versa. So if you got the ball and chain and you had to wear the thief, then you weren't sleeping at night. People were beating on you, spitting on you, and taking everything that you had. So, you know, just each other kind of regulated each other and kept everybody fairly honest. Any questions before we get out of here?
What's that piece there?
This? Probably a bridle. Something for just hauling water, you know.
Over your shoulders.
Yeah, they would have thrown it over the shoulders and yanked the bucket on both sides. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to show this to everybody. We typically pass this around, but just because so many people are here. Well, actually, if you guys will just kind of take a quick look and pass it all the way around, that way everybody gets to see it. And I'll tell you guys what that is. If you already know, then just wait. Some of the rations, and this was always a kicker. What do people eat in the military? 3/4 pound of pork. So every day you got issued 3/4 pound of pork, which is not bad. You got 1 8-ounce piece of hardtack. For those of you that don't know what hardtack is like a biscuit that you left out for about a week. It's really hard bread. It came in 3 flavors. It came in mold tack. It came in weevil tack. And then it also came in weevily mold tack. You know, they've been hauling this stuff. It had been on a boat for months. It had been walked through the Florida sun for a month. Yeah, it was not good stuff. A pound of beans and vinegar. Anybody know what the vinegar was for?
Pork.
Well, no, they'd use the salt for that. They would use the salt for the pork. Well, yeah, they could do that. You would do that. You would dip your hardtack in vinegar, but scurvy. If there's no vegetables and no fruits mentioned on your diet, people would get scurvy a lot. So they would use vinegar to help rid themselves of scurvy, and as a purifier. They would use vinegar was like their cure-all. If you ran out of vinegar, then you kind of started panicking. Because vinegar would do everything that you needed it to do back then, as far as they know. Right.
I mean, you can bathe with vinegar.
Yeah, but you only got a couple of ounces of it, and you would use it more for scurvy and infection than bathing.
Okay.
Yeah, you weren't required to bathe, but once every 2 weeks. So yeah, in that wool suit, not a whole lot of scent got too far out. You know, it definitely stayed in, but it didn't get too far out. So any guesses on that block of stamps or game that's being passed around? And how many of you did I just eliminate your guess? Some kind of stamps or game. That's more fun.
Why was it always in a wool suit?
Well, that's what they had in Europe. That's what they needed in Europe. When they came over here, they had no idea. They actually called summertime the sickly time. They didn't understand what was going on in Florida. But just so you guys know what went around there. Anybody ever heard of the Boston Tea Party? When they were throwing all this not Lipton bags of tea and not gallons of pre-made Publix, what you guys all just passed around is a block of tea. What would have happened is each one of those little perforated squares on the back, there's 16 of them, one of those would have been for sale for about $6. Or if you had a good enough quartermaster, he could issue a block for about 6 men. And what you would do is you would shave off about a quarter of an inch, maybe a couple of ounces of that in your water that you drank out of the river. It was very important to mask the flavor that you're getting out of the river, all the tannins and everything else. So that's what that is. That's a block of tea.
Here I thought it was dominoes. It's just
Yeah, everybody thinks it's a game. All right, any more questions in here? We'll move on. Anybody? Okay, come on out.